Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and I'm here in the garden of garden designer Jane Beedle, who some of you might recognise from the Great British Bake Off 2016 finalist. And Jane has designed her own small urban back garden to be contemporary and full of colour, but on a quite limited budget and in an amazingly short time, because 4 months ago this area was just a muddy puddle. So let's hear her tips.
We really did have a horrendous mud patch, especially with two young dogs. So I thought about how I would use the garden and what we needed from it. And basically we needed somewhere lovely to sit, somewhere we could retreat to for a cup of coffee, and somewhere I could pack full of plants as well. And we've got a tiny space, it's only 52 feet long. Don't ask me how wide it is. But for a dining table, and at the time we had sort of lounging rattan furniture, I was trying to squeeze the whole lot in because we do like a bit of lounging, especially the kids when they come and visit. And so putting what we wanted and what I had, I decided I had to chuck out the existing furniture and buy myself some new to make it work in the space. Also, because we're a tiny garden, I can't hide the shed. We've got a whacking great shed for all the junk that Ray likes to keep. And I didn't want to be able to have a clear view down the garden of the shed and of the dining area. I wanted it to look as though it was sort of separate compartments and just give a little bit of enclosure to the various bits. So by bringing the borders across the garden, it naturally breaks up the space, so I can block off the shed a little. You can still see it, you can still see the dining areas, but from the kitchen the first thing you look at is the first flower bed, which is what I wanted to do, and then you look beyond. So it's not big enough to give you a journey, but it sort of gives you a visual journey down the space. I mean, my fantastic thing, which is I love in the garden, are these gabions. I've got lime trees that I inherited all the way down one side of the garden, which are brilliant because they give me some privacy from the houses that back on. But the problem is I couldn't plant it. So there's a wall behind, so what with the wall and the tree roots, planting along that boundary was almost impossible. And I certainly didn't want to have pots all the way down there. It's too high maintenance. So we bought these Gabion baskets, and they're 500 high, so they're perfect for perching on. So it's a little bit of extra seating if you want it. But more to the point, it meant that we could use all the paving that we took up from its previous existence and stack it against the front face. And it's a labour of love, breaking it up and trying to get straight lines. So it looks quite smart from the front. And then all of the rubbish and actually the good topsoil that we had to lift when we took the grass up was stacked either behind to form a flower bed or into the back of the gabions, and we didn't have to have a skip. So it was absolutely fantastic. So I've got raised beds, extra seating, sorted my planting problem out on the cheap. But one of the things that costs money when you're building a new garden or renovating an old garden is the cost of taking the rubbish away. It's stuff that you don't always think about. You think about the cost of the paving, you think about any new fencing, but it costs a lot of money to have somebody take away any extra soil, any extra paving. So if you can cut that down, not only is it more eco-friendly, but actually it saves you quite a lot of money. And actually what I've created is a wonderful habitat for wildlife, because all these little gaps in the stone on the front face, brilliant for overwintering insects, for solitary bees, probably for slugs and snails as well. But live and let live, I say. They do eat all our rubbish. So I've got it's sort of a no-brainer. I didn't have to pay to have rubbish taken away. They look nice, they're extra seating, and it's great for wildlife. Well, choosing the paving again wasn't difficult for me. I make very snap decisions, and I suppose because I build enough gardens for other people, I'm very aware of what there is around. And I'm also, very aware of price. And we did do this on a budget. We had a lot of other expense with the house, so I didn't want to spend a fortune. And I didn't want a multicolour paving, which some of the cheap beige sandstones are quite multicoloured. So grey was lovely and neutral as far as I was concerned. So I just chose a really nice, good quality Indian sandstone, which was very inexpensive. And I laid it in big pavers. So we've gone for 600 by 900s. And people generally think that you should go for smaller sizes in a small garden, but actually the bigger the paving slab somehow opens the space up and makes it look larger. I mean, lots of people, when they saw the paving down, went, oh my goodness, the space seems twice as big. So, you know, a tip is to use big paving slabs. Mine are laid across the garden, so it makes the garden look wider. When I first thought about the planting, I thought I wanted a very cool, relaxed, white with the odd dot of colour garden. And I achieved it down the right-hand side, but then my complete love of plants kicked in, and I'm very easily seduced in a garden centre. Please don't tell my husband that. But I just love plants. It's something I've adored. I've adored them since I was a child. So things like a big, lovely pink echinacea is a must-have for me, or, you know, a lovely red salvia. And I was trying to make sure I didn't have too many clashes. But you know, you can't have a garden without any colour, can you? I mean, I've got a lot of grey, and I've got grey furniture, and it would have all been very bland and a bit meh. So I thought, no, let's go for it. Let's have some really good splashes of colour. And, you know, it attracts the bees and the butterflies. What I tried to do is to give myself separate rooms, but I didn't want to block them off with something solid. I wanted still to be able to see through. So I've got a couple of miscanthus growing at one end that haven't quite come up to a height yet. I mean, they're really small ones. I can't actually remember what the cultivar is. But then I've added Verbena bonariensis, because you get the wonderful height and movement, but actually you can still see through them. And in fact, you don't need to prop them up very often. So what I've got is 2 olives in a pot, which help to create that initial barrier, and between it the verbena. And I had thought about putting 3 olives in a pot, but in fact I wanted to be able to see through the gap to the beautiful birch that I've got at the end of the garden, which will come into its own in the winter with all its wonderful white bark, perhaps when it's a little bit bigger. The verbena just breaks the view of the seating area, and actually surprisingly, when you're in the seating area you feel really quite enclosed. So that's the idea of making you feel enclosed without feeling as though you're hemmed in by dark, heavy, solid plants. So I think the thing about planting is you don't always have to go for colour or flowers. And foliage and different shapes and sizes and colours of foliage are a wonderfully soothing thing to have, and a great deal of interest. And I hope I've got some really good autumn interest, and also I've got some lovely cornus, which are very small at the moment, but they should be very good in the winter, especially if they get a little bit of winter sun. So I think you mix it up, put in things that you like, but try and envisage what they're going to look like all year round. You know, leaves are brilliant, and you do need some interest in the winter. So if my dogs stopped chewing and pruning my evergreens, I will actually have quite a lot of winter interest. One of the things that I'm the most excited about in the garden is my washing line, which I know is sort of very boring, but I love to get my washing out all year round if I possibly can, and it's also much better for the environment than using your tumble dryer. And I'm fortunate in that I've got reasonably wide side access, and I found this fantastic dryer that lays flat to the wall and just comes up, and you single click and it's up there, and then single click and it's back down again. So it's not like a whirly that is an effort to take out of the garden, or a line that you have to take down. This thing's absolutely brilliant, and I'm a very sad person, but my washing line's probably the most exciting thing I've got.
If you enjoyed this, do please hit like, because then I'll know you'd like to see more about garden design. And if you are looking for tips, ideas and inspiration for your middle-sized garden, then do subscribe to the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.